So my expectation from this panel is that my speakers, my wonderful, illustrious thinkers sitting here will share some provocative remarks so that we could have a good discussion. So I have some questions to get us started. And I would request the panelists to keep their remarks brief so that we can run through maybe 2 rounds of questions. Actually, let me do a poll with the audience. How many of you, based on what you've heard from the speakers since morning, how many of you think that the currently available AI systems pose a serious concern on the idea of ethics or privacy or disruption of learning? How many of you think? Okay. 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 So there is some skepticism. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So with this anecdotal empirical evidence that we saw, the title is, is this technology supposed to augment the work of thinkers in this field, in this discipline, or it is simply artificial layering of what we already know? Dheerendra, let me start with you. Because you've helped unleash this monster. Can you pass this, Tejal? Can you pass the microphone? Oh, okay, thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy to take up that question. And obviously, I would say that at this moment, the way the technology is rapidly changing, you sometimes feel like that you are standing on a platform, and there are multiple bullet trains passing across the platform, and you don't know what to catch, and you have a fear that you might be left behind. And the fears are not completely unfounded. There are certain skepticism and certain valid reasons behind the same. But the story is not new. Actually, to be honest, right from printing press to anything that we are doing right now, anything that we change in technology or any progress that we make in the human history, it's always filled with certain skepticism. And my biggest worry is that sometimes people feel that the fear of the unknown will overpower the benefits of the known. And I would strongly urge everybody to always keep that in mind, that you should always try to reap the benefits and harvest the benefits of the known, rather than being too skeptical about the fears of the unknown.
So is it really fear of the unknown? Because it is a known fear now. We understand that what it may do, which may not be really in the right domain. Is that something you were able to capture in your book, Kashyap?
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I wrote a book called AI for Lawyers, a short and happy guide to AI for lawyers. So the back of the book says what happens when the world's fastest moving technology meets the world's slowest moving profession. Okay. So we have to see this in the context, this question of fear, augment, eliminate. See, elimination is out of the question. So I sort of have a leg in the legal field as well as in the technology field and field management, etc. So from the outside in, looks like just like other professions, the legal profession also has some elements which can be automated by existing tools. And there are certain aspects which should not be automated. So we need to look at this debate in the context of what's happening in India, the larger context, if I may. So very briefly, about 2.5 crore cases are filed in India every year, and we are not able to clear them 100%. We have a backlog of about 5 crore cases. And then Dr. Ashish mentioned that the number of judges is about 15 per a million or 10 lakhs. So the Supreme Court says we should have about 19 or if the Supreme Court says we should have 50 judges per 10 lakhs. But even if all the vacancies are filled up, we have about 27,000 sanctioned positions in the judiciary, but about 21,000 are filled right now. So even if all of them are filled, we'll still have only 19 judges per 10 lakhs. So also to So we definitely need help in the form of responsible automated tools that can help us in the medium term to long term. So that's one aspect. The second aspect of where the fear is coming from is that there is probably about 20 lakh lawyers in India, and 70,000 lawyers join that pool every year. There are 1,700 colleges. I'm rounding up the numbers in the interest of time, but maybe less than 10 teach any kind of data science, any kind of automation, legal technology courses. So it's really that fear of the unknown. So big step, congrats to Anshul and Bitslaw as you to do this first small step. Maybe it's that one small step for Bitslaw and PSI, but maybe a giant leap for the legal fraternity out here.
Or humankind. Why limit to legal fraternity?
Why not?
So I'll take it forward from here. You said the mingling of the fastest moving technology, which for all intents and purposes is becoming a general purpose technology, like electricity, pretty much. And it's blending with the slowest occupation. Because there are so many lawyers here, I'll rephrase that a little bit. We want to keep the relationship going. So I'll call it protocol heavy, skill intensive occupation. Better, right? So, but is that something that you're also seeing coming out in the classroom, Vishwas?
I will respond to that question in a bit. But let me actually kind of take everyone back to an observation made by the Supreme Court Chief Justice, John Roberts, in his annual, statement. He made a statement primarily saying it's all good to be working with AI, but we need to kind of adopt a cautious approach and need to be a little more, humble. There needs to be more humility in kind of taking AI forward in its integration towards, how judiciary kind of works with it. And taking on that, a very interesting judgment written by a Federal Circuit judge, Kevin Newscomb. He very clearly kind of in his judgment declares that he used AI in his judgment and very clearly notes for what purpose he used that, AI to assist him. And he was actually troubled by a very interesting word, which is landscaping. It was an insurance case largely dealing with the question of whether trampoline is part of a landscaping element or not. And he asked his assistant to understand the term, give a note on defining landscaping, both legal, dictionary. He felt it was a very unsatisfying exploration of the term itself. They spent about 3 hours doing it. And then he said, he then asked his assistant to actually go look up landscaping on any one of those LLMs, ChatGPT being one of them. And he said it threw up a very, very interesting perspective, not just of what the plain meaning of the word is, but rather the contextual element of it, right? And that is where he actually makes a very interesting observation that where AI tools can be a very useful element in the judiciary and for the legal fraternity. And he spots this thing very interestingly, says, it seems like AI is very good at picking up patterns, consistencies, inconsistencies. And he himself kind of goes back to his approach. He's a textualist, so he's more of an interpretativist. So who's primarily kind of very satisfied with the response that he actually gets from ChatGPT and realizes how to use it in the specific context of his judgment, right? He had 3 other judges actually writing on similar lines who didn't necessarily use the AI, but he clearly goes on in his verdict that he's made a declaration about its use, what it actually kind of enables him to do, and the limitations of it. In fact, he goes on to actually write 3 pages, right, in terms of, the good and the bad of using AI, the guardrails that a judiciary needs to actually put in place in order to ensure there is more trust and faith in what the judiciary is doing by using AI. So that, I think, is a very, very useful tool, which can also be used in a classroom environment.
Finally came back to the question. Finally. But I'm not going to let go. I'm going to ask the same question. See, that's the problem with lawyers, and that to a law professor. It reminds me of a joke which famously in the 80s Mark Gallant, a very accomplished law professor, said, "What do you make of 6,000 lawyers at the bottom of the sea?" And he said that, well, that would be a good start. I mean no offense. We come in peace. But Vishwas, the same question again. You talked about patterns, consistencies, inconsistencies. What kind of patterns and inconsistencies do you see in young lawyers or law students?
I think the danger that we will put them in is probably not make them realize what original thinking, analytical skill, in-depth research brings. I think a shortcut approach to embracing AI in law schools might actually throw up these results where no law firm, no lawyer would largely want to kind of have, someone who is trained in that way to actually engage, with the legal profession.
Thank you. Thanks. That brings me to Tejal. You're part of a very established, successful tech company. So the expectations from you as a panelist are the highest at this point in giving us some very conclusive responses to some questions. One of them is, do you think that this technology at this point in time is augmenting the work that you all do on a daily basis?
So let me just start with a resounding yes. Okay. So let me take this further. We are at the BlackBerry stage of AI. Okay. Unfortunately, the young law students or the young lawyers that come in have not seen BlackBerry. So they are trying to make this AI do things that it's not necessarily geared to do yet, but will do in a very short period of time. So one piece is that we're extensively using it, and which is why I love this combination with BITS and the law school and AI, because you have the perfect combination where a lot of the tools that we've built in-house, along with the lawyers. So that's one piece. I think the second piece is we are very, very intolerant of errors made by machines, whereas humans make errors all the time. And we are far more forgiving of that. So I think the way we see it is it all depends back on what you spoke. The purpose for which you use the AI is going to determine the risk you take.
Did you just equate machines with humans in a very subtle way?
I'm not sure I equated them.
Okay.
My sense here is that the reason that AI gets dangerous is because it works on scale. And therefore, the errors it can make are not individual in nature, but they can be, which have a much rather larger impact. But if you use AI with purpose, and the purpose is right, we found that almost 90 to 95% of our use cases are not high risk, but they're augmenting, they're increasing time, speed, efficiency, quality of the legal output. So I actually have a tool, for example, similar to Nyaya AI, which compares my contract clauses with standard clauses and tells my junior lawyers what they are missing. It just improves the quality of it. Now, my more experienced lawyers don't want to adopt that. But they say, no, we know better. But that's not true. Everybody can miss a step when they're reviewing a document. So in my sense, it's a big resounding yes, both on time and quality.
All right. Let me ask Roshan a question. do you agree that we are at the BlackBerry stage of AI? And how are you, as one of the premier law firms of the country, dealing with this gale of creative destruction, as Schumpeter put it once?
Um, I've never used a BlackBerry in my life, so let's let's begin at that. So I don't know what that stage looks like, but I imagine it's possibly T-1. So the radical statement that I want to put out possibly is, I think everyone here agrees that AI makes us do things. I want to lead with this possible argument, if I can, that it also makes me think. So my heuristic and the heuristic that my firm adopts when we think about adopting these tools is we think around 3 lines. We think around intuition, what creative outputs can we generate. We think around amnesia, what am I forgetting, right? And we think around sycophancy. So there's some literature on this that kind of sort of teaches us that AI can be a very good henchman. It can follow me better than it can follow the law, right? So if that becomes a reality, as a sycophant, how does it hallucinate? I can give you guys an example. Sometimes when I take the models available to me for a spin, I say, I'm thinking about solving this problem. Let's say I'm drafting a data sharing agreement. I want you to solve this problem through two lens. Lens 1, I'm solving this for a large company. Lens 2, I'm solving this for a small company. Tell me what's the difference going to be? And what I have observed with these systems is that they're designed to tell me to do more in case of the large company. And I realize that it's being a sycophant, because sometimes the law does not want me to do more. Sometimes it will say, well, you can think about localization for the large company. And I ask myself, does the privacy law want that? So that's the heuristic, the IAS model. And I think the I is the most important model as we race forward. How intuitive is AI? And to my mind, the creative questions that it is solving now are not legal questions. They're questions of commercial interest. How does it distinguish between bigness and smallness? How does it distinguish between prestige and the lack of prestige in a commercial context? And that's where we come from.
So I'll pick from there. You said something very interesting. AI is making you think. And there was this meme which got really popular that I want AI to not think and write for me, but do my laundry and dishes. So here's a question. If AI helps us think more, think better, and think deeper, then are we looking at a real scenario of the world being eventually divided into those who can write and those who absolutely cannot write well? Let's get a perspective from the technologist. Dheerendra, what do you think? Are we looking at this scenario, right and right nots?
So I'm an eternal optimist, and I always hold the human resilience and the adaptability in much higher esteem than what most people perceive it to be. I honestly feel that you should always make your computer do things that you hate doing yourself. And at this moment, with the advancements that we have made in the AI, so I've been in the industry, technology industry, for around 2.5 decades, and there has never been a more exciting time than it is right now. So at this moment, if you are not using AI, you are losing out on some like very, very remarkable efficiency in any profession. Now, there are obviously concerns that have often been raised that, okay, it hallucinates, etc. And precisely that's the question that started happening like 1.5 years ago. And we tackled that problem like right in the face. And we have solved that problem. So there are technical solutions. There are guardrails around everything that you're possibly doing with the world of AI. And I believe that even if you look at like electricity, there's always a chance that, okay, there can be a short circuit and there can be a fire, right? But does that stop us from using the electricity? No. How do we stop that? We build some guardrails around that. Similarly, even in the case of technology or like AI, you can build guardrails. Now, people generally have like a very limited understanding of what AI is currently capable of and what AI is doing. there are like extremes. So some people think that everything in AI is all about ChatGPT. No, it's not. It's just a small part of it. It's just a reflection. It's just like a representation of what AI is. You have to tune that model. It's like a horse. You have been given a very, very powerful horse, but you have to train that horse. Until you learn to tame it and train it, you cannot make good use of that horse. So that's exactly how I would draw an analogy to that. So that's really my honest perspective, that to think that we would stop thinking altogether, no, I don't think so. I think what would happen is that we will get rid of the time that we'll save, even for like specific to this use case about the utilizing AI in legal. Rifling through like thousands and pages of documents written across different vernacular languages and finding a specific piece of text, or like what is the technical term called Nazir, right? Why does a human mind need to waste time on that? Human mind can be better be utilized on something else. Now, again, one could argue that, okay, kids these days are copying essays from ChatGPT, but there are again tools which can actually help you detect whether there is plagiarism, whether there is something auto-generated from GPT. So there are guardrails around that. So the fears are there, but I would say they are kind of misplaced at this moment.
So I'll summarize it in a slightly different manner. It's a technologist's way of saying that if a teacher can be replaced with an AI, then you better replace that teacher with AI. Don't try to induce complementarities. Kashyap, did I get that right?
See, I think I just want to stick to writing for a minute. So there is this saying, right? They say that the pen is mightier than the sword. But now the prompt is mightier than the pen. So we're in that situation. I've written more than 1 million words in my career so far. But I have to admit defeat at some point in time. AI is doing a better job. So that's quite interesting. But if we zoom out, there is this concept that's coming called as cognitive offloading. So you stop thinking. And this we see in other professions as well. So like when you fly a plane, except for landing and takeoff, it's mostly run on autopilot. So the Pilots Association worries that the pilots don't know really, unless you're very experienced, how to manually fly the plane. So for a lot of thinking professions, white collar professions, law, finance, other things, if we are not careful, we may end up with that risk.
You said cognitive offloading.
So we're offloading our thinking to AI.
That reminds me of another word which a lot of behavioral scientists use, which is cognitive dissonance. That you stick to your guns no matter how resounding and convincing the argument is. Are the AI enthusiasts leaning towards this direction? Tejal?
That's clearly a challenge of AI. AI is like a good counsel arguing in our courts. Irrespective of whether they are right or wrong, they will try to prove that point. And so AI is doing really the same thing. And that's a big fear, because it will justify the content that it is generating. But we have to look at it in the context of what are we trying to improve. We as a country in India, we have a vast number of people who are not trained as well. We have a vast number of lawyers who are really not very competent. And so what AI can do is bring up the level of a vast majority of the profession to a level which is, of a particular standard. The other biggest kind of fear I have is not just the dissonance, but it's also, it takes more experience to find out what's wrong than to say, I don't know. So if AI generates something, it's very, very difficult for us to then pinpoint what it has actually said wrong in that sentence. And it takes very experienced lawyers to find that out. So there, I think we should be really clear, are we using it for the vast majority of the people to pull them up? Or are we using it, are very experienced lawyers using it to figure out what is right and what is wrong? So it's actually operating, I think, at 2 levels. But I'll just end with one more thing, which I just wanted to point out. Artificial diamonds were developed in 1954. And today we have governments who are saying that there is nothing like a lab grown and a real, it's all one and the same, right? It takes time, and it is going to bring up things to a particular level. We'll just have to figure out AI to solve AI problems, to your point, if AI finds plagiarism, then AI will find non-originality, then AI will find errors, because a human mind is not going to be able to do the scale.
But why
that it's
not?
doing.
Why not? So let's take a step back. If it's difficult for an astute judge to write a solid judgment which reads very well, if it's difficult for a professor to write a journal article which advances the frontier of knowledge, or a new book which brings a new idea, why should it be easy for learners to learn it? If it's difficult for me to write it, why should it be easy for someone else to learn it? It's the process of learning that you scratch your head when you face a problem and you realize that you need some more time, let the idea marinate in your head, and a quick answer is not the best way forward.
I would leave that to the professors. It's a
Well,
whole new
that's-
generation who wants instant gratification.
That's you, Vishwas.
More than happy, but professors are getting sued in US for chat GPT PPTs, and class content. We want to go in that, way. So it's always kind of tempting to go for a quick response. But I think if you are looking at training young minds, I think first principles, understanding of, plain simple law is absolute, and anything that AI does supplements their learning. That's the way I would actually put it.
Okay. I have one question which I have written down, which I'm going to, it's like a rapid fire. So if you can answer it in one sentence, that'll be great.
If you are expecting a rapid response from a lawyer, probably not.
No, try. That's what, it's important to push the boundaries of comfort and convenience so that good ideas come out. In your understanding and experience, we'll go from that corner and we'll come towards Vishwas. In your understanding, your own experience, your own beliefs, your own optimism, although we are a country that disappoints the most optimist and the pessimist at the same time, what is the one existential threat? I know as a CTO it's difficult for you to point out this one, but try. One existential threat and one undisputed strength of using AI in delivery of justice. Mike.
Yeah, so my biggest fear is really the fear of the unknown, like preventing us from moving forward. That's really my biggest fear. And what I would say the biggest strength is really the ability of artificial intelligence to do lot of data scanning, extraction, and lot of other things that can be really like saving lot of precious human time. And the scale at which AI can do it, I think it's simply unmatched. So that's the biggest strength.
Thank you, Dheerendra. Roshan.
I have very similar thoughts. I think the undeniable strength is a zero draft. Right now, I think we can do a zero draft of virtually anything in the legal space with AI. What I'm afraid of most possibly is amnesia. I don't know what I have forgotten thanks to AI. I know that it makes me think about certain problems in certain ways. I think there are some scholars who will talk to you about Brussels effect and how countries are adopting other countries as models. I feel that maybe tomorrow the way I think about privacy will be largely like the EU, or the way I think about antitrust will be largely like the US. So that's my big fear.
And strength?
Zero drafts.
Oh, zero draft. Okay. Kashyap.
So thank you, and I think the biggest opportunity is access to legal knowledge. When you go to a doctor right now, for you or for somebody in the family, you Google all the symptoms and you sort of know better than the doctor when you go to the doctor. But the same thing doesn't happen with legal knowledge. It's not democratized yet. So now we have tools and technologies which let that happen. That's the biggest opportunity. SDG 16, 16.3, access to justice. First step is access to legal knowledge, democratize it. The threat again, I mean, this will play to the sweet spot of palette, which is the law profession is such that you need to learn lifelong. You need to be original lifelong learners are lawyers. But in that suite of what they're learning, there is no technology. We don't have continuing legal education credits or requirements in India, but it's there. It's the norm across US, UK, and other countries. Even in India, the CAs and the doctors, they have CLE requirements, continuing legal education requirements, but we don't have that. So if we, for most of the lawyers in this room, probably not in this room, but in general, AI is a black box. So using tools that we don't know anything about is a problem. Right now, for the big law firms particularly, ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but ignorance of AI is actually lucrative. You can bill more. So that's the challenge.
Tejal?
So, you know, from a corporate perspective, what corporates really need is speed and predictability. And believe it or not, they will also need cost savings. So I think the biggest strength here for our country will be if we can build predictability, speed, and a consequence reduction in cost, because our legal delivery system has become dysfunctional in some sense because it is not available to everybody in a timely and a cost-effective way. So AI can definitely help in that direction. If I look at the challenge, I think the challenge is a change in mindset. Lawyers think in Word. We don't think in Excel. We don't even think in data or trends. So I think the mindset change to adopt something like this is the biggest challenge today. It's not the technology, it's the way we think about it.
Really like that example. It was a confession. Vishwas?
If you're speaking more specifically from the point of view of profession and law schools and judiciary, I think one of the biggest challenges would be the data on which AI is trained. There are bigger concerns, especially about India, authenticity of the data, and that might actually lead us in a very different direction. Strength is absolutely, in terms of pattern spotting, ability to kind of very quickly identify patterns and inconsistencies, which might help both lawyers, judges, and to an extent, students as well.
All right. So this is all the time we had. Because of paucity of time, we cannot take questions from the audience. We have another very exciting panel lined up. I'll sum up the conversation we had with a very interesting anecdote I heard in one of the conferences I attended. It was, and because my parents both taught at a university level, it resonated with me. And it goes as, a teacher is, both parents, they're going to teach in a school or a junior college, and the kid asks them, "Mom, Dad, what are you going to do?" Mom says, "I'm going to teach how to draw," fine arts teacher. Dad says, "I'm going to teach them how to understand law." And the kid, very young, responded by saying, "When did they forget?" Let that thought marinate in your head for a little bit. When did we forget some of the things that we are grappling with? On that note, can we have a big round of applause for all the panelists here?